Hi everyone, Mr. Ball here. Just going to give you a brief overview of the development of castles to help you with your build your own or design your own castle project. Now, castles develop really for two main reasons. One, for better defensive purposes, but secondly, as time goes on, we tend to find that the country becomes a slightly more peaceful place and they get a little bit more comfortable. So, this is what we've learnt already. Motte Bailey castles. Your motte, your big mound of earth with a wooden keep on top, and your bailey down below, surrounded by a palisade wall where your troops and your animals and farmers would rest. And it's still very well defended because there'll be a big moat across it and there'll be a drawbridge before you can even get to the bailey. Okay. Obviously, Motte Bailey castles were not long-term installations. They were made of wood. They were going to rot. They were quite easy to set fire to. So you start to see some development. And the first type of development you see is what you see here at Dover Castle. You see the wooden keep be replaced by a stone keep castle. And those are quite familiar in Norman castles. The White Tower in the Tower of London is a stone keep castle from 1086, I believe. And as you can see, it's a fortified position. Towers on the top to outlook, but your bailey has become more communal, and there are buildings that have sprung up to support the community within there. And if you look at Framlington, they've gone the other way. They've built up the walls and created sort of their living accommodation from there. Okay, so inside a keep. Just a very brief explanation. Firstly, the lavatories would just be holes that would drop down into the moat. And a dirty, disgusting, stinky moat is no bad thing. Not great if you live inside, but much worse if you're trying to cross it to get into the keep. So, again, remember, castles were primarily defensive. They weren't really luxurious, great places to live. So, bit of a stinky moat. You just had to put up with it. A couple of other features. Everyone would live in the Great Hall. You would have your lord and lady. You would have the staff. You might even have animals in there as well. Rare occasions. Divided, of course, and slightly separated. But all within the same room. Why? Because you had the big fireplace and it was the one place where you could keep everything warm. Staircases are spiral and they are built in that direction for a good reason. In fact, this spiral staircase you see here is the wrong way round, because most people are right-handed, and if you are defending, you will be coming down the stairs. So what you would want to be able to do is take your sword and poke it round the corner. Now you couldn't do that if you were left-handed because the staircase would be in the way. And again, if people attacking, they couldn't jab their sword around the corner if they were right-handed either. The staircase would be in the way, so it was just another extra defensive precaution. So if you go to a castle, look out for that, because you will see that they all go up in a clockwise direction. Okay, so moving on. Here we see three different types of castles. Can you guess which style is which? Yeah, there's your Motte Bailey. Then we have our stone keep castle. And then we have these rounded towered castles. And they look great, but there are two main reasons why we've decided to get rid of the more square look. But I'll come on to that in a minute. But we're starting to get to the look of a castle that you might imagine. As time develops even further, you start to get drawbridges and portcullises. Portcullises I'll come on to again in a minute, because you'll have a barbican in there. We'll talk about that in a minute. And then we start having these concentric castles. Now these, you'll notice, have walls at different heights. That's very good for firing out, because you could be firing at a lower level and people behind you could also be firing at the enemy without fear of attacking the people your own side who are just one layer in front of you. and again, the very rounded shape. Not only is round beautiful, and one of the greatest examples of these concentric castles, which are also called Crusader castles because they're the type of castles that Crusaders built. Crac de Chevalier in Syria, Google it, it's absolutely gorgeous. And unfortunately, it's taken a bit of a battering in the recent civil war there. But go and have a look at that. It's very cool and exactly what I imagine when I think of an awesome castle. So these are the tools by which people would attack a castle. Pretty self-explanatory. Battering ram. Doors were made of oak. Portcullises would be strong, but not that strong. And a battering ram would be able to with enough weight, be able to make a dent and break through. Then we have the sappers or the underminers. Now this was very clever and is a reason why the concentric or the circular tower was developed and got rid of the points, because points on a building are the weakest point. Any edges, any right angles are the weakest areas of a castle. And what people discovered is that they could undermine it, which meant go underground, get to the foundations of the castle. They would then prop up with logs the foundations of the castle, and then they would start a fire underneath it. And they would use things like pigs, big fat sucking pigs, and they would set them on fire because they burn very well and they burn hot because they're big and fat, and the fat is almost impossible to put out with things like water. So even if the fire did start, there was almost nothing that the opposition could, as the people who were being laid siege to, could do. And what the heat would do is it would burn away the pit props that were made of wood, and they would come down, and also it would crack the stone. The heat would expand the stone and it would crack, and potentially what could happen is an entire wall would fall down, at which point you could then charge the castle. How dramatic would that be? Then further down we have a catapult. Trebuchets also used. There's a slight difference between the two. There's some good videos of trebuchets being used at Warwick Castle, so you can Google that. Okay. And lastly, siege towers. So siege towers, well, you've got big walls to climb to get over into the castle. Why don't you build a giant attacking ladder? And that is what a siege tower is. People could all get in one big section, and a large volume of soldiers could attack at the same time, make it much harder to defend. Again, when we talked about curtain walls and various heights of different defence, this made it more difficult for siege towers to have different layers of defence and various different walls. So that kind of got rid of that. Okay, so again, here we are. You can see the difference quite clearly. On your left, your pointy stone keep castle with your 90-degree angles, very vulnerable, very weak to being undermined. And then that is replaced by these round towers. There's no point, there's no 90-degree angle. So to undermine it would be very, very difficult. It would be unlikely to come down. So that tactic wasn't used. Also though, having a round tower gave a greater arc of fire. So if you were defending, you had a much bigger sweep, 270 degrees I think, with which you could attack the enemy. You could attack them from any direction. And there are often holes at the bottom of these defences where things could be dropped on the people as well because they would hang out over. So again, primarily built for defence. But part of my favourite part of modern castle design would be the barbican. Now, a barbican would be a sort of like an entrance gateway, and there would be portcullis at either end. Now, these are those gates with spikes at the bottom that are raised upwards to allow people in. Once people got in through one set of doors, they would be held in this barbican, checked that everything was okay, and then the second portcullis would open and they'd be allowed through. If an attacking force came in and got through the first set of defences, the first over the drawbridge and through. They wouldn't necessarily be able to get through the second portcullis, and they'd be trapped in the Barbican. And if they were trapped in the Barbican, then they were in deep, deep trouble, because at the top of the Barbican we would have murder holes. Now, murder holes were holes that were in the roof, and they could be opened up, and a variety of things could be thrown or fired or poured down on the poor people below, from burning oil to rocks to arrows. Small slits just be opened up, and it would be like shooting fish in a barrel. If you got stuck in that Barbican, I'm afraid that would probably be the end for you. So what I want you to do, guys, is I want you to design me a physical castle if you can. So lots of loo rolls and cereal boxes, things like that, great to use. And design me a booklet that explains its defensive features. Why would this be a great castle to own? How am I going to protect myself if I've been laid siege to? You can design any type of castle that you like. It can be a PowerPoint presentation, it can be done on paper, but I want to see what it looks like, and I would like to see these defensive features described for us, please. I'm really looking. I love castles, so I'm really, really looking forward to seeing your designs and explaining how they will help keep us all safe. And on that message of keeping us all safe, I hope you're all well. Miss you very much. It looks like I'm probably not going to see you to the beginning of year 8, but take care of yourselves. Thank you, and bye-bye for now.